Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going on a seriously fascinating deep dive into Eastern cosmology to look at how the universe, life, death, and even the afterlife actually function. It's a system that might completely, literally flip your perspective upside down. So let's just jump right in and embark on this cosmic journey together.
So think about this. What if heaven was just a temporary vacation? Pretty much throughout all of human history, we're taught that eternal paradise is the ultimate finish line, right? You do your good deeds, you get into heaven, and you're just set forever. But what if that idea is entirely wrong? What if heaven is actually just a temporary and ultimately flawed resting place? Today, we're exploring an ancient worldview where the celestial realm isn't the end goal at all, but rather just a really luxurious, temporary pause in the grand scheme of our cosmic evolution.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really get how this cosmic system works, we have to start with the concept of I, which basically translates to principle, or the fundamental truth of the universe. Now you might be wondering, how do we actually grasp a truth that massive? Well, we don't do it by forcing incredibly complex new ideas into our heads. We do it through a process called igung, which is a continuous, deep inquiry into gigi, meaning the things we already intuitively know. By just pondering the natural, everyday truths and the common sense right in front of us, our minds naturally open up to the universe's actual mechanics. It's not about agonizing over dusty ancient texts, it's about just observing the reality around us. And there's this really profound idea at the core of all this. Humans are yang and gods are yin. Now normally when we hear yin and yang, we just kind of picture light and dark, or day and night, but in this specific cosmological framework, yin and yang are the fundamental engines of absolutely all existence. They drive life, death, and everything in between. They're two halves of a whole that simply have to interact, like a cosmic marriage. And once you understand that humans and gods represent this ultimate dynamic, the terrifying mystery of life and death actually starts to make total, beautiful sense.
Let's break that down a bit and look at the human condition. Being young means we are stuck in a physical body that is in a state of constant, nonstop change. We have to eat, we get cold, we get sick, we age. Honestly, it's uncomfortable and full of suffering. But that friction is exactly what makes enlightenment and evolution possible for us. Now contrast that with the gods, who represent yin. They exist in spirit bodies. Their existence is completely unchanging and incredibly, perfectly comfortable. But, and here is the massive catch, because they literally have zero friction from a physical body, they're completely stagnant. They cannot spiritually evolve.
To really wrap your head around this, just imagine the gilded cage of Traya heaven, which is the second celestial realm. It sounds like the absolute ultimate VIP package. There are zero limits on flying, you can pass right through physical obstacles, and you don't even need to speak because beings there communicate instantly just by emitting glowing colors. There's no physical fatigue, no need to eat, no bearing of children. But this absolute lack of physical friction has a dark side. Because everything is just so unbelievably perfect all the time, gods feel zero compassion. There's simply nothing around them that is pitiful or sad. They become totally, entirely detached. And because they're stuck in this perfect, unchanging comfort, gods essentially become like component parts in the universe's giant machine. Think about it. If you put a human in charge of running the cosmos, we'd get bored, frustrated, or distracted within a week, right? We're always changing our minds. But gods, existing in that state of unchanging yin, they don't get bored. They can flawlessly execute a single cosmic task for hundreds of billions of years. They are perfectly reliable. But again, a component in a machine doesn't grow, it just functions. But here is the crucial question that literally flips everything on its head. What happens when heavenly blessings run out? You see, the universe has no free rides. Even up in the highest heavens, there's a very strict economy at play. The immense comfort the gods enjoy isn't eternal, it is purchased. So we really have to ask, what exactly happens to a god when their cosmic bank account finally hits zero?
Well, the answer is a concept called Bokjin Tarak, which means the depletion of blessings. Heaven is absolutely not a permanent state. It is entirely like renting a luxury apartment. The spiritual currency, the good deeds and the blessings you accumulated in your past human lives, that pays your rent in the celestial realm. But as you spend hundreds of millions of years living in total luxury, you're slowly but inevitably spending that currency down. And because you feel no compassion up in heaven, you can't build any new blessings. So eventually, the spiritual currency runs completely dry, and the terrifying fall begins.
This brilliantly illustrates the eviction process, known as chonin also.
the 5 signs of decay. It's a haunting countdown for a god who's losing their divine status. First, the beautiful flower crowns they wear mysteriously begin to wither on their own. Second, their pristine celestial garments suddenly start gathering grime and dirt. Third, and this is super shocking for a being of pure spirit, they actually begin to sweat from their armpits, which is a sign of creeping physical mortality. Fourth, a deep, restless dissatisfaction with their heavenly throne sets in. And finally, their celestial attendants, the Jade Maidens, just up and abandon them. It is a tragic, totally irreversible descent.
Now listen to this quote. Falling from heaven hurts 10 times more than the pain of a person dying and going to hell. Just imagine that for a second. Having perfect peace, zero pain, and absolute luxury for literally billions of years, only to have it completely ripped away as you are forced back down into the chaotic, heavy, painful, mortal world. The psychological and spiritual agony of that fall is almost incomprehensible to us. It really proves that heaven, without the ability to continue growing, ultimately just becomes a beautifully decorated trap.
This whole tragic fall from grace connects directly back to the ancient concept of samsara. Samsara is that agonizing, relentless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. What this cosmology is teaching us is that even immortal beings, even the highest gods in the heavens, are trapped within this exact same relentless cycle. Because they can't generate new blessings while they're up in heaven, they eventually have to be pushed out, returning to the human realm, or sometimes even lower, just to start the whole thing all over again.
It's kind of like a giant puzzle, and this analogy makes it all click perfectly. Think of a spirit in heaven like an unplanted seed. It's safe on a shelf, perfectly comfortable, and stays exactly the same. But it never grows. Now compare that to a seed planted down in the dirt, representing a spirit entering a human body. The dirt is dark, it's heavy, and it's full of friction. It's a really difficult environment. But it's only by taking in that moisture and putting down roots in that messy dirt that the seed cracks open and actually sprouts into life. The pain of the human condition is literally an absolute requirement for true spiritual transformation.
So naturally, this brings us to a pretty massive question. If heaven is basically a trap that you inevitably fall out of, and human life is full of this necessary but really painful suffering, how on earth do we actually break the cycle? If neither state is the final answer, what's the ultimate empowering solution to stepping off the wheel of samsara entirely? Well, the answer is Biap Posik, which translates to the giving of truth. Remember earlier how we talked about needing spiritual currency or blessings to evolve? The absolute highest form of building blessings in the entire universe isn't donating money or physical goods. It is sharing profound truth and universal principles with other people. When you help someone else understand the deep mechanics of the universe, you are generating the absolute most powerful spiritual currency possible. There's this saying that hits the nail on the head. Material gifts are temporary, but one good word of truth lasts a lifetime. If you give someone an object, they use it up and then it's gone. But if you give someone a universal truth, if you actually awaken their mind to how the cosmos really works, that truth alters the trajectory of their entire existence. It's a treasure that lasts forever. And that is exactly why Bialpabosi is infinitely more valuable for your own spiritual growth than just giving material charity.
And the wildest part of the whole shebang is how interconnected it all is. Sharing the truth doesn't just elevate you, it elevates your ancestors too. Your ancestors up in the celestial realm who can't build blessings themselves because they're stuck in that comfortable, unchanging yin state actually rely on you. They guide the best spirits into their human lineage, essentially hoping that you, their descendant, will practice Pyopsi. When you share the truth and build that incredible spiritual merit down here on Earth, that merit flows upward, allowing your entire lineage to evolve together. You are literally their lifeline to higher cosmic progression.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. If sharing the truth really is the ultimate currency of the cosmos, who will you share it with today? We've learned that human suffering isn't some sort of punishment, but actually the very soil required for our souls to sprout. We've seen that heavenly luxury is really just a temporary vacation, and the real work, the real evolution, happens right here, right now through Biapses. So take this knowledge, ponder it deeply through Igun, and pass it on. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and I absolutely can't wait to guide you through our next Cosmic Deep Dive.